Hello, dear audience. Welcome to today's CRMKonvo show, where we like to explore the symbiotic relationship between AI, industries, and customer experience. Do they make a heavenly match? This challenging question we have the pleasure to discuss with our today's expert, Reza Soudegar, a driving force at the intersection, to say so, of technology and customer centricity. Reza has more than 2 decades of experience in business consulting, IT strategy, and the development of customer relationship management solutions. He held senior leadership positions at Accenture and Oracle, serving clients in high-tech and communication industries, and was responsible for a number of products in Oracle's CRM suite. Currently, as head of product marketing for SAP CX sales and service solutions, Reza leads a dynamic team dedicated to amplifying the voice of customers within SAP. Strategic guidance and innovative approach not only shape SAP offerings, but also empower customers to navigate the complex landscape of CX solutions effectively. In addition to his corporate endeavors, Reza co-authored the acclaimed book, The Customer Experience Edge. We will talk about this, solidifying his status as a thought leader in the realm of CX innovation. Join us as we explore together the convergence of AI, industries, and CX with where innovation meets impact. Welcome with me, Reza Soudegar. Reza.
Hey, Ralph, thank you so much. Thank you for kind words and great intro. I'm very excited to be here today to talk up to three experts on CX and CRM, and this is a pleasure and a privilege to be here. Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. I appreciate that, and it's also great to reconnect with Thomas. We haven't talked to for a long time. Marshall, we again
been a while.
Long acquaintance. Yeah. Very nice to connect with you guys, and of course Ralph. Very nice meeting you.
So I'm the newbie, the new kid on the block here in that configuration.
Yeah.
But I was really curious to meet you, Reza, as you are one of the co-authors of the Customer Experience Edge, a book written some years ago, 2012, if I'm not mistaken, but it still has a compelling actuality. And before we go for the detailed talk, is there anything you would like to add to the introduction, something private or something where you would like to put an emphasis on?
I think just to give a bit of background so everybody can understand where I come from. I'm an engineer by training, so electrical engineer, started coding in buildings, CRM solutions before it even had a name. And the reason I kind of evolved into, from building products to actually going to consulting to help customers deploy it, get value out of it, and then going back to a vendor to help shape the products was really to improve the impact of these solutions at the hands of the users and the end customers. I'm passionate about the customer of our customers because I'm a customer myself. I had to deal with a lot of the pains, and it's kind of that's my personal motivation. That's what I love about CX is that we build solutions that have impacts on people's lives, can help them. We don't save lives, but we make all the frustrations of daily life come out and go away with the solutions that we provide to the customers of our customers. So that's the motivation. You asked about the book, and the big motivation behind going there and you're talking about CX was that I'd seen so many years that people start with a vision about customer, discussion was about customer, and then it would end up being a forecasting tool built and delivered, or a customer contact information management, which really had very little impact on the life of the customers that we're serving. That's why we kind of took a look back and tried to take a perspective of what success looks like when you can actually improve the customer experience overall, and how you would do that with technology. What's the best practices? What are great examples to help, provide some aspiration to others who get on these journeys, and then they end up, on a complete tangent from where they want it to be. So that was the motivation behind the thinking and the book. And really today, every time I talk to a customer, is really about avoid the tangent, stay on that north star that you have.
Let's talk a bit about what CX is. At the time of writing your book, you had a definition. Is this definition still the same, or did it evolve over time?
Honestly, I think the definition is very simple and stays the same. Customers are looking for really 4 core elements that we found out, right? They want reliability, they want responsiveness, they want the brand promise to be there. It's really about trust. So you have a relationship, you purchase something, or subscribe to a service. You want to get value out of it, and you're expecting kind of these core 4 elements to be delivered to you. Now, depending on the industry you're in, or the service that you're purchasing, or you're subscribing to, the expectations might vary. And I think overall, we all expect more today from whatever we touch, right? Be it a hardware device, a service. So the watermark has gone higher, but I think the core stays the same for customers in business or consumer alike.
Has the definition of CX changed over the years? Or is it just how we address that question to answer it that's changed?
I think that's a fantastic question. From the business leader's perspective, right? If you're talking about companies and their definition of CX and their definition of CRM, it has changed quite a bit. From an end customer perspective, on the receiving end, it was always the same. It was always give me the convenience, give me the reliability, give me the speed that I need to do my work. In the organizations, what you've seen happen is kind of a maturity model building up. The first wave of CRM was about really, do we know who customers are? Do I have data? Can I transact on those data? Can I bring it all together? So if you recall back, early 90s, you had many spreadsheets, mostly spreadsheets, some homegrown applications. You had some like gold mine. I don't want to age myself, but those type of tools were kind of running around, and companies they said, okay, I don't even know what a customer is. Who is my customer, right? There was no list. If an exec said, listen, give me a list of my customers, you would have a hard time finding those. So you went through that one-step maturity model. Then the next step was, okay, now how can we make the process engineering that had happened earlier in the back office, how can we bring it into a front office and have a more of a disciplined process of engaging with customers? And that was more the Siebel days. It was about effectiveness and efficiencies and managing salespeople and all that. Again, all these had little impact on customers, right? Very little impact. I think it was with the explosion of internet and commerce and direct engagement that suddenly the end customers started seeing some benefit, and organizations started understanding, hey, if I can do things better with my customers, if I can meet their expectations, maybe I can improve my margins, maybe I can improve my business, I can improve my reputation, I can develop my brand, and there is value to be had there. And then you could see some early adopters where they actually started with a customer experience first approach when it came to product design. Their brand, everything around it was, hey, we are about the customer. So that's how I kind of saw the evolution of this kind of 3 steps. And now we're getting into the next generation of the applications, which are going to be AI driven, are going to be customer facing. You're going to be probably replacing a lot of the people in the organization with these type of tools, and enabling customers to engage directly with smart engines. And we have to see how that evolves, right? We've seen, and there's some industries that are going to be impacted tremendously. I was talking to a financial advisor, and the advisory role is going to go through major changes in the same way that we saw when travel agents, right, went through major disruption. So I think we will see I'm excited about seeing the next stage of evolution.
Yeah, means right now the AI is in charge of CX, or what?
AI is in charge of a lot of things now these days.
But seriously, who is in charge of CX?
In organization is very interesting. Depending on the company that you talk to, right? You have different people who think they're in charge of customers. You have in some companies, it could be the marketing organization, and some other, it could be the sales organization. Then it could be customer service. At the end of the day, to deliver the CX, it's about bringing all these kind of silos together to say, are we delivering the overall value that we need to? However, again, depending on that maturity curve that they're on, there might be, in the next 3 years is customer service that's going to drive all the CX type initiatives across a company, because service is where the pain point is. But another company could be, the marketing side. So it really varies, Thomas. And I don't know, in my experience, when we were trying to implement, the first thing we would do, like go and spend a week, 10 days, do some assessment. And one question I always loved asking is like, who is a customer? Not even who owns it, but what is a customer for you? And around a table, if there are 10 people, you would get 10 different answers. And I think that's still the case, right? It could be the partner organization. It could be the reseller who is selling your product in the marketplace. It could be the end customer who's actually touching. Depending on where you sit, you see customers differently, and I think that's still the case. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Like, what do you see when you talk?
Okay, let me answer that with a counter question.
Yes.
I'm always wondering why, whenever I ask the question, who's in charge for CX, nobody, or really nobody, says the customer. Because the customer is the only one, in my eyes, who is in control of their own perceptions. CX, customer experience, is a perception. How do I feel about company over time, is how Paul Greenberg says it. So it means there can't be anyone at a company being responsible for the CX. You can engage. So you are in control of half of the engagement, only half of it. But you are not in control whether I went up on my wrong foot in the morning, or whether my dog bit me in the backside, or whatever. Yeah. So which changes the perception of an engagement and my reaction to an engagement. So why is that?
That's a fantastic point, which has to do with context. Kind of like you only own half of the equation, which are the things that you can control, right? But then customer in each engagement, they also come in with a context. Let's say if I'm making a travel arrangement that's 4 months out, let's say 2 months out, right, for a vacation, I'm in a different mode that if I am trying to make a travel arrangement to address an emergency next week or a few days, right? So in that context is what's going to drive my experience, right? if I'm calling in and say, listen, I have an elderly parent and getting operated, I need to get on the next flight to get me out of here. What can you do for me? Right? It's a very different mindset that I'm in, where I want to plan a vacation. And what I expect is different. And that's super important for companies to be able to decode what is the context of the customer. And I'm going to deliver. And that's where the agility and intelligence comes in, is that, do I take you through this path or do I take you through this path? Right? Do I have the power to cut a few red tapes, to make a few exceptions to get you the best experience for something that I'm not really optimized for, right? I'm at, let's say, 90% of my travel or business travels. So that context, understanding and then reacting to that, that's where I think you can inject the element of the customer that you mentioned, that their perception now is going to completely change. So that's kind of my view on that question.
But why do we still say someone at companies in charge of your experience? It can't be, because your experience is yours, and it's hard to change, right?
Yes and no, because I think the companies, let's take customer service, for instance, right? Customer service needs to have some sort of KPIs. It needs to have some sort of, guiding principle to be able to organize itself. How do I staff it? How do I train my people? What processes do I implement? How do I manage? So for that, there is, I think it's valid for a company to say, hey, listen, we want to deliver this type of experience, which is defined by these type of KPIs, which could be defined by this. So this type of process, at least it's a blueprint, right? That you put in place. At that level, you need to own it, right? But then from then on, it's like almost like when they say, when you go to war, any army that meets the battleground, all your plans kind of go in the air, right? Now, when you get the first call, right? So then you're gonna start. Some of these processes will work, some of them won't work. Sometimes you have to make exceptions. You need to have two supervisors, and then you kind of evolve through that. But you need to have the stewardship and the ownership on in that organization by some people. Otherwise, you won't have the handshake with the customer. Now, when the handshake happens, then you can start evolving it, right? So I would say that would be my answer. It's not that, I'm going to own it, I'm going to force it on you, but I'm responsible to make sure that you are getting, what you need out of me. And if I need to change, I will drive that change in my organization.
Yeah, and part of that's got to be the appearance of accountability. I mean, if we say that the customer owns the customer experience, when something goes wrong, the company is not going to say, well, you screwed up your own experience.
Yeah.
There's got to be someone on the corporate side to point to, even if just to mollify the customer.
Yes, absolutely. Because customers, the control, I mean, I think it's kind of unfair to say, oh, it was your fault, right? You should have gone to that side. Why did you go to this side? If you had, so that's, so they're in control on how they want to engage with you. Am I going to come through this channel? Am I going to go through that channel? Am I going to go through my dealership? If I'm a car dealer, I'm going to go ahead and purchase for you directly. So those are choices that they make that matches their lives the best. But they still expect, they expect the course to be delivered to them, right? So in that sense, they own it. But they also, I would say, with modern solutions, the customer at every point of the way is make a decision. So it kind of tells you about their context, about, what their preference is. So then you can adapt to it. But if you are kind of like more on the company side, you are more rigid.
Mhm.
You know, you can't tailor to their preferences. So every time they come back, it's as if you met them for the first time. Like, hey, how are you?
Mhm.
Instead of, hey, knowing, hey, this guy is a text guy, I'm only going to communicate with text, for instance. Let me just take a simple example. But having somebody within the company who has the title or has the mantra of, I'm going to be managing these KPIs, I'm going to be looking at these things, I'm going to be adjusting, is super important in my view.
Agreed. So now the question comes back: who is it then, or who should it be? You already said so. There are oftentimes various people who put on this hat for different aspects of the same thing, but who should be this main steward?
I really believe it's going to be very difficult. I mean, it helps simplify if you could say, oh, there's a chief customer officer. Now you own it, right? You're it. Go fix it. But it's a DNA of the company. Let me take you back to my experience where I was part of a company that I felt was really had customers as core, as part of DNA, and that was Anderson Consulting before it became Accenture, and then the tradition kind of moved on. Literally, the day you walked in, it was the mission was that we work on the best projects with the best customers to deliver the best results, and it was in the DNA that you could be part of the company, right? When you're at the office, but when you're on a site on a project, you are 100% dedicated to serving that customer. You don't care about the margins of your company. You don't care about any internal metrics. Now you're on a project and you are not only an employee, but you're a steward of that customer. That part of DNA, if you think about it and bring it back to organizations, that whatever you do, if I'm designing a product, I need to be customer centric. If I'm selling it, pricing it, let's look at it from an outside-in perspective. If I'm servicing it, it's once you bring that DNA in, then things start moving, and then you can have kind of a blueprint of customer experience that people say, hey, this is the Virgin experience, right? Or this is the Singapore airline experience. Everybody understands it. You don't have to describe it to anybody in Singapore Airlines. What is Singapore airline experience? They just know what it is. And I think that's where you build it out. It has this cultural undertone, I think, into it that you need to build up besides the technology and process side. So going back to your question, I think everybody needs to own it. You can have an orchestrator in a company, right? But it's very naive to think that we can have a customer experience department and the problems are solved. I don't know, but Marshall, you may have some thought on that, but that's what I have seen in my experience.
So your belief is, if I understand you right, that it is a part of DNA/mindset. It has to be with culture and with the attitude, thinking in your customers' benefits. Yeah?
Yes, and always have that outside-in perspective, but from an ownership of CX, you're more a coordinator if you have a department than anything else, because it's just going to be too much to ask that an organization, if whole company is going one direction and one organization is trying to be customer centric, that's not going to work.
Now, I'm curious on the part, as we have touched a bit, who owns CX and who has the CX, how the symbiotic aspect of CX in context with AI or industry focus, where is the beef? What is more important from your perspective?
Yesterday we had a conversation kind of on the sidebar with Thomas on industries, and I feel that what we have seen when you talk to some customers, the base horizontal capabilities that have been delivered to them for years are not enough for what they want to do going forward and their aspirations. And that's where they are. It's a combination of industry requirements, but also transformational requirements. I'm going to take an automotive industry. Automotive industry has a very, very specific way of selling cars to consumers, right? You design the car in Germany, the manufacturing may happen in the US. Then it goes to a national sales center that's then distributed to the dealers with different options and configurations, and then it's delivered to the customer, and then the relationship is managed to the dealership for some service stuff, but then you still have some relationship with the manufacturer. It's a very complex and unique way of doing business. It's a combination of history, regulations, you name it. Now, with the EV revolution, right? They start selling direct. Tesla is selling direct. Then you have other mobility services like e-bikes. They're going to be selling direct. Scooters are going to be selling direct. And traditional automotive companies say, listen, we want to also take our new EV next generation vehicles in a direct-to-consumer model and engage with them. Suddenly, if you look at their backbone, nothing is optimized for that, right? Nothing. It's just they have to almost rethink their service capabilities, their marketing capabilities, their commerce capabilities, their mobility capabilities in terms of apps, engagements. So that's where, when we talk about like a vertical CRM, that's almost a new category. You have to go build from, I wouldn't say from scratch, but you have to rethink some of these things on a vendor side, right? On our side, on SAP side, where we are looking at this, hey, these are, and many of these companies, they have a lot of SAP components running the core businesses. They say, hey, listen, I want you guys to use what we already have and deliver to us very quickly what we need, where we want to go. So that's when I think these stories around verticalization of CRM solutions comes in because of the transformation that's going on in some industries, and that's what makes it interesting. And then AI is kind of an interesting, overlay on top of this, which comes into play. So, oh, now there's a lot more that we can do, or probably you also have to even to project out what could be done next 3-5 years that I'm going to think about it when I build my applications. So super exciting, but that's where I think the marriage of the core CRM of industry transformation and AI would come into play.
I was just wondering, Reza, as there were two interesting examples. One was a testimonial or a former, let's say, reference case of one of the most interesting EV makers, Tesla, who got rid of the blue cloud. They didn't love it, they didn't want it, and they did not connect. Now, interesting enough, Mercedes, as one of the famous German car makers, tries to get into a certain relationship. Going in the automotive industry, what is your experience? Do you have a connect to Porsche? Or I just recall one of the virtual sapphires where Christian Klein was making some showcases on Porsche.
I don't have any specifics on Porsche that I can share with you. Unfortunately, I'm not close to that account. Smart is one company that we actually publicly worked with on their EV, and that's how the exposure that I got into the transformation was really through that company, and some of the others were coming to us with the scenarios that they expect to be supporting in the future.
What can businesses of other industries learn from what automakers are currently going through of their transition that they are
Do
going
they
through?
have it, for instance, easier?
That's a good question. I think each of these industries, right, are dealing with their own kind of I hate the word disruption, but I would say transformation, where you have you've been doing things a certain way for a certain amount of years, and now things around you have changed. Right, technology has changed, customer expectations have changed, business models have changed, and you're if you don't move, you're almost going to become obsolete. So another industry that I look at, which is super interesting, is our utilities companies. So utilities, typically speaking, they have a lot of legacy systems, right? Because they've been around for a long time. They also have a requirement of resiliency that not many businesses have to deal with, right? If you think about it, the resiliency and expectation that we have from the utilities companies is tremendous. But they have an opportunity to manage their costs better. They have an opportunity to engage with the customers to help them manage energy consumption better. They have an opportunity to and then use those funds to go back, upgrade the electrical grid and make the grid smarter. So that's an industry that is also looking at the other legacy industries like automotive and try to learn from it. And there might be some opportunities for cross learning, especially as they move to EV. One example I can give you, like our utility provider in California is private, but it's a monopoly, right? So they have to make some profits. They have shareholders, but they're also providing a monopolistic service. So financial stuff matters, right, to them, and they need to be able to and they are looking at leveraging technology to drive efficiencies where they can, where they should, and then take that funds and put it to forest management, to managing safety, to upgrading the grid. So there's a lot going on in that industry. That's another one that for me it's a big one, and where SAP has a role to play because we have been providing these companies for years with their core systems. Now it's almost incumbent on us to come and provide them with the next generation solutions that they're looking for.
So what are possible cross learnings then?
I think one cross learning that is everybody's going to be looking at is the use of AI. How do you use it in these type of environments for, beyond, write me a blog, right? Chat GPT, but really, what are you going to do with these AI capabilities that are available to optimize your processes, to improve the customer engagement? And I think those are absolute cross learnings that companies are actually should be looking at each other, because everybody's going to crack the nut in a different way and they're going to have a different approach. It's super exciting also because every once in a while you have a new report that comes out about how AI performed, right? Give you one example. I was, and it just floored me, this one. So they were applying AI to do image analysis, X-rays. So there are three scenarios. You had the AI doing it alone, you had the doctor doing it alone, and then you had the AI and the doctor do it together. Which one do you think had the best result? Sorry, which one do you think had the worst result? Let me ask you that maybe that might be easier to answer.
The AI,
the doctor.
I think.
The mix.
The doctor and AI. That was the thing. The combination of two had the worst result.
Wow.
This study came out of I think it was at Harvard or Stanford, and the reason was that, and this goes back to human mind, that after hours, doctor who's looking at it, well, it's like, hey, AI already looked at it, right? So you're not looking at it with that critical eye that you would have at the first time looking at it, right? And it's just a human behavior, and we don't know about this stuff. I mean, this is like so counterintuitive, right? You would imagine pass through everything through AI. Whatever AI didn't catch, the doctor is going to catch, or the other way around.
Yeah.
Worse result. So these are the type of learnings that I think, or nuggets that comes out, and they say, okay, in my organization, this is how I can use, the automation and AI capabilities to, in my context, and it's going to be different from one to the other. But I think that one learning is something that would tell you, hey, don't make assumptions. Do some testing before rolling out anything, because you may not know. You may run into some funny side effects. So yeah, those are, I think those are areas like that. Another one was great study was where they actually used it in a very large call center, 3,000 employees, and what they saw was that there was very marginal improvement, almost nothing, in people who had almost more than 2.5 years of experience. But people who had less experience, they saw a huge impact, almost 40% better performance when they were augmented by AI, and AI kind of providing them some guidance and some help. So, and each of these will put you in a different, trajectory of how and where you want to inject these AI type scenarios. To manage your risk, to improve the results, measure and learn, and go and do something else. Another point I wanted to also bring, I think energy is a big topic when we talk about AI. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, right? Compute power and and one of the things I think we will see more and more is that as you run the AI scenarios, you're going to go back and enrich your kind of more static processes or more static data. You don't have to repeat every time you want to answer a question to run the thing on a generative model when the question has been answered 45 times already, right? And that can be captured, put back in a knowledge base, or once the process has been optimized, is giving you the value, just lock it in and move on, right? You don't need to have AI constantly recalculate. Because there is, you arrive at a certain point of, 80-90%, and now to get that last 5%, your energy consumption and cost is going to go tremendously high, right?
Yeah.
So, and those are the elements that companies can learn from each other, and also, I think we will see more publication of those type of, findings and research, which helps people understand what are the boundaries, at least, that we have with today's generative models.
With those findings, that almost sounds like generative AI will soon reach find its blockchain moment and get into oblivion, because it's overused and doesn't really solve a problem. Is that what you want to say?
No. That's a great question. No, I'm very actually I am very optimistic. I'm very optimistic from two perspectives. I think, honestly, it's a tool that came very quickly in the hands of general public, and I'm always impressed by the ingenuity of people to take a tool and do unexpected things with it, that have tremendous value impact. So I think generative AI is one of those, right? It's a very powerful tool. Now it's in the wild. Now it's going to be up to practitioners to come up with really interesting applications in their business, in their environment, and get value out of it. But I think it's not going to be a blockchain. I don't know. My feeling is that it's not a hype. I mean, it was like this was in culmination for years. I mean, I remember when I was doing engineering, AI department was a very small department. We kind of like, almost chuckled. You are going to go to AI, get a master's in AI. What is that, right? Our perception was, sci-fi movies. But I think it's been in culmination for years, and it went up and down. It had its winters of AI would come and go, right? That would be really like nothing happening. This time around, I think we have, the right hardware, we have the right compute power, the models seem to be working, but it's not for everything, right? I mean, for text, it's been fantastic. For text, it's working well. Imagine, but can you generate a sequence of video? I give you the first, 5 minutes of a video. Can you generate me the next 5 minutes? Impossible for it to do, right? It's just not designed.
OpenAI would probably beg to contradict. Think Zora.
Well, it's just not. I mean, they actually admit it's not made for that. And the reason is, if you think about language, right? It's a finite model. I mean, however you go about it, it's finite, right? So what we have, we may have a lot of text on the internet. We may have a lot of content, but these are language models. Like, what's German language? How many words? How many sentences? How many concepts? Or English. So it's finite. But if you bring a multi-dimensional data set, that I took a video, right, which is X, Y axis plus temporal, right, and the pixel values in the 3 different colors. You have like maybe 9 or 10 different variables. These vectors are not the same as a text vector, right? Completely different. It's so those models. Now, it doesn't mean they won't come up with new neural network architectures and models to be optimized for that, but it's not the same thing. It's not going to be a panacea. What most experts that I kind of talk to and listen to are kind of saying is that it's going to be like taking the generative models and going to a narrower use case and data sets where you can actually have an impact. For instance, if I'm doing customer service and support for medical devices that I manufacture, my world suddenly gets smaller, right? And the models get smaller. It can be more precise. It can be trained and monitored. And then we'll have tons of value. It doesn't mean that because it's not general AI, it's gonna have value in that context. But maybe my finance department have to do their own thing on the side. They can leverage the same one. Yeah. So that's how I think this is gonna be evolving, or at least coming into our world of CX in the next 24 months. Those type of narrower, very highly focused use cases.
Use cases or models?
I'm sorry?
Use cases or models? Because
both.
Doesn't that go hand in hand, basically?
Yes. Both. I think it would be both.
Yeah. Sorry, Ralph.
I just was wondering, aside of that, we already learned on the hard way that they are schemes and machines and AIs which are doing a lot of music, classical music, and Michael Wu presented in one of his showcases some of that stuff, which was very impressive. I was wondering when we have the next Goethe, Schiller, and Lessing on the line. So I was more focusing on our small world, such as industry. Is there somebody in the industry already, aside of SAP, where you would say in the competitive landscape, is there already somebody running forward in giving some good examples, use cases, or something where one could get inspired, being SAP, that they are doing it even a little bit more clever, more smart, more fast?
That's a great question. The way we have approached it, I mean, just a bit of kind of context. We also, as a software vendor, we were watching AI, but when Gen AI actually came to its its birth and availability, we started taking this very seriously within the company. And the way it's run is not centralized in SAP, right? We have a chief AI officer now to provide some guidance at the high level and point of view. But within each department at SAP, so our HR colleagues, our CX colleagues, our supply chain, everybody is, because they're closer to the business and the business scenarios, they're involved in kind of creating what makes the most amount of sense to go out. The scenarios that I've seen that I thought it was very smart and very timely was around HR in the beginning of the year, which was, parsing resumes and questions and generating, text for employee engagement. That was really kind of spot on. It's a very, again, narrow world, but you can get value out of it. Within CX, there is maybe no. That's an area that has, by definition, has so much unstructured data, especially in the world of sales and service, where you have transcription on the phone and you're talking to someone, and so summarize, take case summarization, solution recommendation, next best action in context of sales. Those were no-brainers for us. It was like, hey, we've been waiting for a technology to do that, and it's perfect. But then you get into next kind of level, which is really applying the smartness. Imagine, and that's what we have on the roadmap. Take a conference call a sales person has, and they're demoing, and a whole back and forth going on. That whole thing could be monitored. What was the sentiment? Did you answer all the questions? Was there anything open that a customer asked that you didn't answer properly? The AI engine can kind of provide you that insight. Hey, maybe you want to go back and revisit these 3 things before you wrap up your call. So there is a lot that we are thinking about and we are looking at that can deliver value. Big topic for us right now is around safety, safe AI, right? Secure AI, and not go over the boundaries, right? So those are type of things that so there's an ethics department also that kind of looks at this, right? That provides guidance, because some engineer might think, hey, this is a fantastic idea. Product manager, oh my God, this is going to be hot as hotcakes. And then the ethics guys, no, you were kind of like going on the boundaries stuff. So it's definitely a hot topic for us. It's super exciting. Everybody at SAP is really intrigued. We are doing a lot of also training within the company to get people up to speed on this. So you will be seeing more coming, but you will see it across the board. The June, which was we delivered June earlier this year, was really across the board for all SAP applications to benefit from. But then the use cases are very LOB specific. That will be coming. I'm actually pretty impressed with the pace of how they're rolling these things out, and that's one part. But also, we are using these things internally, for writing unit tests on the development side, right? Write unit tests, help with testing the solution that you're building. They're creating so much efficiencies. And many other companies are doing, like I talked to my friends at PwC, we were kind of discussing our learnings and kind of enabling everybody, training them on how to use these solutions on their daily work also is a big effort that we are doing, and those companies that are also on the consulting side are doing as well. So both of those tracks in the products as well as training our own people to use AI kind of responsibly and also effectively in daily work.
Now, looking into us, you being totally excited about the possibilities of AI. At the same time, there's another big trend going on within the industry, which is industries. So I also know a couple of companies that with horizontal applications and solutions are fairly pretty successful actually across a variety of industries without having industry solutions. So would you say that the concept of industry is a bit overrated for CX or CRM?
I don't believe so, and that kind of goes back to historically. One of the applications that started going into industries in the early days was Siebel systems.
Yeah.
Siebel had a very strong kind of horizontal platform, and it was also built in a way that you could extend it and easily, So on the implementer side, when we were deploying Siebel systems, like for pharma or for telecom, they were completely different. I mean, you couldn't even recognize. Right? So I think with horizontal solutions today, now the customer has to do a bit more to it to adapt it to his industry. But if you want to address the industry transformation that we were just talking about, and not only adapt it to mills and mining, but I am actually changing the way I do mills and mining business, that might be a lot of work, and that's where I think vendors like us can add value by engineering these things in-house. And again, it's not gonna, I don't think that we can ever meet 100% of the requirements that companies have, but bring it to the point that they can do a finish of 10% rather than have to do another 50% of work. So that's where I think the value is. Now, again, could some company take a horizontal solution, put it in, modify it a bit, and get somewhere? Probably yes. But is this, from a vision perspective, projected out 5 years or 7 years? The expectation is going to be, hey, I need some. If there are solutions out there for automotive, if there's a solution out there for telco, solution out there for banking, I'm going to have that, right? Rather than a super horizontal solution.
So over time, should we expect to see more AI as an embedded technology in CRM platforms?
Great question, and this is what we were kind of discussing internally for.
It is kind of a leading question, but
yes, it's actually it's good. I think the pace is so fast that there are some AI elements that should be like today. A customer would say, I think this should be part of the core offering, and then there are some scenarios where you can say, oh, this is actually a tremendous value add and could be monetized separately. But then fast forward it 36 months, almost the watermark kind of moves up, right?
Yeah.
More needs to be part of it, and then give me more in this other category. So that's it's going to stabilize, right? I think it's going to stabilize where you would have AI taking care of a lot of the core stuff that's today, like as an SFA solution, for instance, right? My forecasting could be driven by AI, right? The AI models do forecasting, and that would be an expected, right? That you have that smart forecasting in the solution. Let's say, a couple of years from now, we won't even be discussing that, and the watermark would move on. So that's how we think about even when we are trying to package our solutions and put it out there, really delineate between elements that would be part of the core solution, has to be part of the core solution. That's the new watermark, and what could be an add-on where not everybody needs it, but it can deliver exceptional value, and that that would be separated out. And I think probably all the vendors are kind of struggling a bit with this at this point, with the speed of change.
Turning that a little, or flipping it a little. So right now, all vendors and their dogs probably are touting, "Hey, I got these great AI features," which are basically table stakes. So when will they? Do you think when will they start talking more about value and say, "Hey, of course it's of course it's AI because it doesn't work anywhere else, anyhow else."
I think the adoption is going to be the question, right? So when you deliver the solution, it needs to go through a phase of, okay, I'm going to adopt it, I'm going to use it, I'm going to see if what type of benefits I'm getting from it. And I think that's we are all in that period of over the next 9-12 months, these solutions are actually going in the hands of a department, being used, and say, hey, I'm actually seeing this benefit from it, or I'm seeing these issues with it, right? On the hallucination side, or on the security side, or on the training side.
Well, that I would say is a bug. So why not? In former times, we said, "Hey, this is the feature I deliver, or the outcome that I want to achieve,"
Yeah.
And well, nobody cared and nobody actually needed to care how it's done on the inside. Isn't that the same here? So I deliver you this potential benefit that you can use, and from a user point of view, I couldn't care less whether it's AI or whether there are 200 diligent Vietnamese people cranking some wheels.
This is a good one. I think it has to do with the times that we are in, honestly, where there is a hype, right? There is excitement around AI, and people want to know, hey, this is actually AI generated. This is generated by Joule, or this is generated by ChatGPT, and we are using this tech. And but at the end of the day, I agree with you, right? Let's say I had a little applet on the side of my dashboard, and a service agent that would just give me a solution. Hey, ask the customer this or do that. We used to generate that based on kind of a bit of ML, machine learning of past cases. Now it's going to be generated with another generative model, right? The end user doesn't care. It just needs to be accurate and relevant, right? Don't get me to a solution faster so I can quickly wrap up my call. So from that perspective, I'm with you. These things, the end user doesn't have to know that this is based on what language model is being used, or is it narrow, is it wide, is it tuned? None of that. I agree with you. I think the buyers and the technology kind of the CIOs and people who are in technology, they are interested in knowing what they're getting in their world. They are interested in the architecture, the engines that's being used, how it's being priced, how it's how do you consume it, what type of impact would it have on their on their energy footprint, carbon footprint. I think those are the elements. But from the end user or from the customer perspective, if I go on a on a chatbot, the only thing I should know is, oh my God, this was a good experience. Actually, was relevant. It didn't ask me 6 times, 55 different irrelevant questions.
Yeah.
It got me to the right solution very quickly. That I'm with you, absolutely.
Sorry, speaking of relevant questions, since we have just about reached the end of the hour, I'm going to put it to you, looking for famous last words. What will CX look like in 5 years, do you think? And feel free to include discussion of new user interfaces. Thomas noted to me that Apple Vision Pro is the shiny new gadget that everybody wants to find a way to use. solution looking for a problem, perhaps?
My hope for CX is that we will, it will evolve to be less of a burden for the user, for the end user, for the end customer, and really be much more contextualized, much smarter engagements, and more human-like interactions. That's what I hope that injection of AI in CX will provide on the edges for the end customer and the end users who are engaging with it. You talked about Apple Vision Pro. I just had my demo yesterday. Knocked my socks out. I was just blown away.
Really?
So,
oh my god!
Apple SAP partnership?
I would love to. I'm like, hey, I had so many scenarios in my head. I'm like, oh my god, this is for field service. This could be for that.
Yeah.
It's just amazing tech. And if you think about how much engineering, and that's my geek hat on, how much engineering has gone into this. Something like this maybe 10 years ago would have costed you $5 million instead of $3,500. I mean, it's just amazing experience. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Awesome. Well,
Awesome, yeah.
Yet another wonderful session of CRMKonvo. Zipped by, as always. Reza, thank you very, very much for your time and your insight. To our audience, thank you very much for joining us. Tune in next week when we dive back into the idea of AI and CX. Is it a shiny new toy or something more? With our guest, Peter Perner. So until then, have a great week.
Thank you very much, guys. It was nice talking to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.